Thank you, Father Steve, and greetings to St. Mary's parishioners and visitors. I'm Tony Strasser. How and when did I get involved in various church activities? In 1941, the German army came into Yugoslavia, and all the churches were closed. No one could go to Mass. Also, we could not go to school. Fortunately, I was born in 1935 and was baptized as a Catholic in Sabuna, Croatia. In the fall of 1943, the Tito partisans became stronger and stronger, and it came to the point where people of German ancestry were threatened with their lives by the Tito partisans. Tito wanted to commit genocide of the ethnic Germans living in Yugoslavia. Then my family left everything behind and moved to a different part of Croatia. And as World War II came close to the end, my family by train emigrated to Germany. One day, my oldest brother came to visit us. He then asked if we would like to emigrate to Austria, and my parents said yes. And then he went ahead and made the arrangements for us to move from Germany to Austria, where my uncle and his family lived. Once we were in Austria, we could go to church and go to school. We were also able to take religious classes. Eventually, I went to a Catholic high school, and the teachers were all nuns. And that is when my religious involvement started to come into place. Then came the period in 1949 and 50, when the National Catholic Welfare Conference opened the doors for people to emigrate to the various countries of the world. We applied to emigrate to the U.S. and in other countries. The U.S. was the first country to accept us. We left Bremerhaven, Germany on December 9th by ship, and we arrived in New York on December 23rd, 1951, and finally arrived in Duluth, Minnesota on December 30th, 1951. At that time, the immigration system was much different than it is today. We had to have a sponsor, and Father Larkin was it for us. He had to find a place for us where we could live and provide us with a job. Also, during the first 5 years, we could not get medical or social services. If we needed such help, the church had to help us with such needs. But fortunately, my parents or I did not need such help. My parents were employed at the St. James Orphanage in Duluth, and the superintendent, Mark Thompson of the University of Minnesota Northeast Experiment Station, hired me to do some painting in preparation for farm meetings. This was going to last only 3 weeks, and when I retired my services with the University of Minnesota, it was 44 years later. I educated myself to the point where I was named as the Agriculture Research Coordinator. As a teenager, on a part-time basis, I got involved with the construction of the new St. John Church in Duluth. And from that point on, things just progressed with my church involvement. I owe a lot to the Catholic Church. It helped us emigrate to the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. From Duluth, University of Minnesota transferred me to the community of Lamberton, Minnesota, to the University of Minnesota Southwest Experiment Station. In Lamberton, I belonged to the St. Joseph Church, and I joined the church's various activities. I was the chairman of the church board and also did the church financial bookkeeping. I also was teaching catechism to the 5th and 6th grade students. One time the kids were loud and noisy, and I said to them, "At ease." After the class was done, one of the boys came to me and said, "Were you a sergeant in the Army?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "That's why you used the words at ease." I also was involved in many community activities. In 2004, we moved to Alexandria permanently. At St. Mary, I am involved with several different activities, such as greeter, usher, greeter at funerals, helped with funeral lunches, and I have been involved in adoration every Wednesday afternoon. Over the years, the Catholic Church has been very important to me, and I owe much to the Church in both Church's activities and contributions. And I ask all of you to do as much as you can in forms of church activities and church contributions. It is important to the church, it is important to you, and God will bless you for your help. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. And now I will turn it over to my beloved wife, Mary, with whom I have been married for over 60 years.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Father Steve and Jim Boyle. Where do I begin? When Jim Boyle asked us in June to do this presentation, he said, in the past, they had different age groups doing this. This year, you would like some seasoned adults to speak about stewardship. As I think back over my life, maybe I started volunteering as a 4 to 6 year old child. In the summer, my mother used to grow beautiful flowers. So on Sunday before Mass, my mother made a bouquet of her flowers, and I would take them to the cemetery, to take them to my brother's father's grave. You see, my mother's first husband was killed by robbers. When my brother was 14 and a half years old, my mother married my father. The neighbors used to ask me where I was going, and I would happily answer, to my dead daddy's grave. I am a cradle Catholic. My faith has always been important to me. It came from my parents. When the war reached our part of Yugoslavia, my father was taken from us. Mother and I were put in a concentration camp. I was 6 years old at the time. When I was 9 years old, my mother and I escaped the concentration camp. The churches were nailed shut and we could not pray. If we were caught praying, we were tortured. I learned a prayer to the Blessed Mother, and I still say it today. Eventually, we escaped the concentration camp and made it on foot across Hungary to Austria, near Salzburg. At 9 years of age, I had not gone to school or religious education. However, once I started school and took religious education, I did well in both. It was in Austria that I was able to make my first communion, and later I was confirmed. But in Austria, we did not hear of stewardship. When my mother heard that people were immigrating to the United States of America, she decided to apply, as she was looking for a better life. I was 13 years old when we arrived in Duluth, Minnesota on September 6th of 1951. And just 1 month ago, I celebrated 65 years in this wonderful land. Father Larkin was also our sponsor. He found my mother work, enrolled me at Sacred Heart Cathedral School. At the cathedral, I was in the school choir. At Sacred Heart Cathedral, we had Mass every day. I was able to lay out, or I was asked to lay out the priest's vestments every Friday to be used for the Sunday Mass. Tony and I met on Easter Sunday in 1952. A year later, we started dating. I know we were very young, but we were chaperoned by family members. In July 1956, we were married at the Sacred Heart Cathedral Church. When Tony was transferred to Lamberton and worked at the Southwest Experiment Station, it was then that we really got involved with the church. We became parishioners at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. There I belonged to the Christian Mothers. It was a very active organization. I held all the offices at different times. I also taught catechism to second graders, and later on I also subbed other classes. I was involved in the funeral groups, took communion to the nursing home residents, worked on the nursing home committees. I also helped Tony when the Lions put on fundraising meals or other fundraising activities. As you can see, going to church and working for the church activities became very important for us. We also heard about time, talent, and treasure. We gave our treasure as much as we could and as much as possible, as we had 2 young children growing up and a house mortgage to pay. We gave of our time more than of our treasure. But when I heard of talents, I did not have any talent. I could not paint or sing. At that time, I thought that painting was painting pictures. Singing, I thought, was for gifted performers. As I grew older, talent became more clear to me as what it was. That what I had done in Christian Mothers, holding offices and speaking in front of large groups of people, was indeed a talent. As for singing, one time before Christmas, the organist asked Tony, our son Paul, and me to join the church choir, not because of our beautiful voices, but in a small church, every voice is needed. Tony and I remained in the choir for over 25 years. The only way we could leave is to die or move, and we chose to move. Our son Paul went on to college and eventually ended up living in upstate New York. Speaking of moving, a friend of ours also moved from Lamberton, and when she heard that we were moving, she gave me this advice: Mary, if you want to meet people, get involved in church. We took her advice. Soon after we moved to Alexandria, Kathy Fisher started her exercise program, Faithfully Fit Forever. I immediately joined. Then I found out that she was originally from Movasso, Minnesota. Well, I thought I was back home. I became her son Nick's Alexandria grandmother. You see, my maiden name was Fisher. In time, I became involved with the funeral group with my friend Mary Larson. When my friend Mike Severson found out that I had done Eucharistic ministry, he asked me to join his team. I also give communion with Tony's help at Bethany Nursing Home. I'm also a greeter, help out at Grand Arbor Communion, help out at the block party. I've served on the liturgy committee. We donate food to the food shelf and donate to caring and sharing room. I have also been involved, and I'm still involved, in adoration, have helped at Thanksgiving dinners and Valentine dinners. So you see, both Tony and I take time, talent, and treasure seriously. The United States of America has been very good to us. Now we are able to give more of our treasure than we were in our younger days. Giving to the food shelf is very important to me, as I have known hunger. It reminds me of our first Thanksgiving in America. St. Mary's, where my mother worked, was collecting food for the poor. Who was more poor than we were, having only been in this country for 2 months? But my mother bought some canned goods and gave it to the food shelf, to the area. The Saturday before Thanksgiving that same year, my brother's boss gave every employee a turkey. But he gave the biggest turkey to my brother. You cannot imagine what a blessed Thanksgiving we had. So as you can see, how can we not give back to our church for what the church has done for us, bringing us here to this free land? So I ask all of you, do the very best you can with your time, talents, and treasures. You will be richly rewarded. I hope and pray that I will never forget to pray and thank God and the United States of America for the life that I and my family have here. God bless you all, and thank you all for listening to my story and thoughts.